Hi students, I'm going to make a few videos about how to begin your split complementary watercolor interior. Well before you choose your hues from those options in the instructions, and we'll go over that, you're going to be creating a drawing based on the interior of a room. This can be a room in your home, a room in your garage, a room that you found a picture of that you really like. It can be anything that involves two-point perspective. We don't want to have a boring sort of straightforward view down a hall. It's just not that interesting unless you're standing to the side of the center. What I mean by that is there's many kinds of perspective drawing. There's everything from 1 point, 2 point, multiple point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point, 6 point, bird's eye view, global perspective, all the way around a sphere. You could Google types of perspective and it would blow your mind. It's very complex. It involves a lot of T-square and extended edges and extended lines, and it takes a lot of study. But the beginnings of drawing are all about 1 and 2 point. Very straightforward. If you're walking down a railroad track, you see this tight together, those little wooden pieces, and then they get further apart and they actually get thicker too and more crisp and visible as they come towards you. And you'd be standing wherever your eye level is, you'd be standing above or below that. So it's like you'd be, if you were standing here and looking down, that's what you would see. That's called 1 point perspective. It means everything is going that way. The minute you jump off the railroad, you're now looking at 2 point perspective, because now that railroad is basically like a piece of Swiss cheese. It converges over here, and then all of these converge elsewhere. So then you're dealing with 2 point. Same thing with a box. If you're sitting in a classroom and you happen to be facing the box directly, which is really rare, you basically just see a rectangle, and then the top of the box converges. Let me look at what I'm doing so I can draw it better. So if you're sitting in front of a box and you see the top because your eye level's above it, this is what you see. That's called 1 point perspective. It means that this line has to meet this line. And you've seen by all my markups how off people get on their perspective. This is 1 point. It's the easiest. The only thing you have to worry about here is identifying your eye level. Now, if you couldn't see the top, believe it or not, it would be that. It's that rare exception where you just see a flat square. Now, most people, where they're sitting, will see one side not as wide as the other. The minute you know one side's wider than the other, one side has to be steeper than the other. And most people go like this, they go like this, they go like that, they get all confused, they use a yardstick. No, for this point you just have to find the corner, which is the bottom corner of the box. And then you have to glance your eye, what I call the bow tie here. And then you decide which bow tie section is higher. Generally the side that's narrower is higher, side that's wider is lower. But instead of like making all these weird lines, you decide by visuals where the points are, you connect them. So that's like the gestural part. As you go up, the most common mistake people make, well, there's a few here, is called isometric projection. When this looks parallel to this, you have a problem. When this converges with this too fast, you have a problem. And the very most common is people flare out. They flare out. They go away from each other. And the whole point of linear perspective is that everything comes together. It has to. It's the rule. There is a vanishing point. So instead of figuring out all these angles, getting them all weird, you find the heights and then you follow them to the destination, which is usually the next room over, unless you're drawing really small. So you can always rely on these verticals with a T-square. It's the one thing that's solid in a composition unless the box is falling over. If it's sitting upright, these are your 3 guaranteed verticals. That's what the T-square is for. People have this thing where they take a T-square or a yardstick and they start connecting things and they think it's going to look good. It never does. You don't want a mechanical line, you want a gestural line, because that's how you get accurate. So we always figure out the widths first. That's step 1 in a 2-point drawing of any kind. Could be a TV, it could be a chair, whatever it is. You decide first from where you're looking from the picture or the real object, what is this width? And is this width greater than this width? This width versus this width. Well, this width is narrower. So that's why I drew this and this and this. You usually don't see the back of a box unless it's invisible, like a transparent box, or see-through, I mean. So we have to assume an invisible corner back here. And that corner is always going to be closer to this than this one is to this. It's just sort of a rule of thumb. Call it the invisible line, and we usually put an X somewhere there so that we know it's up there. So, okay, so we have these two. Now guess what you have to do. This is the part where people mess up. They forget that this also goes to this. That's why this angle always looks weird when people do perspective. If they just check to make sure once these are connected, that these also go there, you've got 1, 2, 3. Then at least it's starting to look normal. Now you know where this invisible corner hits. You can do a vague X, but until you do this, you don't know where this falls. Now you do. Now you have the top and side of your box. That's just a matter of connecting. So you can see now it looks natural. Most people draw boxes like this. This is the most common. Like somehow they think they're seeing this, but they're not. It's a sliver. It's not this big weird pointed thing. Or they draw it like this, which means this flares out. Or they draw it too steep. They have the idea, but they do it way too steep, too fast, and they end up with this pointy, weird, like steep cube at the bottom. Most things are not that way, nor will they be in the pictures that you pick. All right, so now you have this side looking good, this side looking good. Now we have to deal with this. And what I said before is when you commit to a point, you're not doing linear perspective. You can estimate with gesture, but then you have to come back and actually see where this goes. Now this, wherever this is going to be on the same plane, eye level wise. Do you see what I mean? Like if this is a horizontal line that goes way out here, if this hits here, we have to travel all the way over here to see where these are going to end up. This is where the long straight edges are. Most people will tape 3 or 4 yardsticks together to make sure. But here we're just going to aim. We have to keep going all the way out here to see. Now look how far out this is. This one's tight. Usually one side's close and the other side's like way out here. So the bottom of this goes here, and guess what? This is now where all 3 have to go. This has to go, this has to go, and this also has to go. So if I were to take a ruler, which makes it a lot better, I can just go like this, hold it up there, and follow it all the way until it hits here. So I have to move it. That's how you tell if you're off. See, now I'm good. See the dot? See that. See the dot? See that. If I swing this down, see the dot? Travel? See that? And that's the discipline, this end. If you lose track of where this is, you can tape it and swing it with the tape. But one way or the other, you have to get that there. So that means I'm good here. Now I'm going to look at this one again. I think I'm going to have to do these in stages because there's just so much to talk about. Even though it's a fun, you know, living room painting, it's still, this is still a deal. So you got to make sure you have this in mind. See, now I'm off here. So based on where I have that dot over there, I can fix this. All right, so I got 2. Boom, boom. Now I got to make sure this is correct. Again, most people will have it like that. It's never that way. It's like a pancake as opposed to a water balloon. We generally see the pancake in this case. Okay, so I'm going back to my dot here. And I'm sliding it down to here, making sure. And sometimes if you have someone else hold it down, if you have another human around, they can take their finger and hold it down. But then I don't have that luxury right now, so I'm going to press it with my arm and get the top. That's how you get correct 2-point perspective. And I'll draw the line here so you can see. Sorry, I'm wobbling around. I want to get up above on the main thing, but I wanted you to see up close what we're looking for. This has to go to here, and then this. So see how all 3 lines have to go to here? In this case, it's closer, but it's pretty normal for a box to be, or a building or an interior, to be closer on one side than the other. You know, and it might, if it were less steep, it would still land on this horizontal line. So if I were seeing less on this side, it would still have to go up. This line has to be the same height for this side as for that side. That basically is a lecture in 2-point perspective. I think that will be helpful. When you're drawing a hallway or a kitchen or whatever, looking directly at it, and you have 1-point perspective, you basically just do a spin like a star all the way through. And if you're terrified of 2-point, I'm okay with 1-point. I just encourage you to try 2-point. Especially if you did a lot of 2-point or 1-point in drawing class. Like let's say you had a door or wall there. Everything goes to this point in the middle in this case. Everything. So before you started your drawing, you would have to do a bunch of lines like this. And you want to draw them all the way through. So you're making like a whole bunch of lines through this point before you even start, because I'm going to look so I don't do it crooked. You're basically going to spin your yardstick all the way through, and then that way when you start to draw what's in there, it's already there. Like let's say there's a picture on the wall. You figure out the height, like maybe it's at your eye level and it goes up to here. Instead of trying to draw a square, people will go like this. Like suddenly there's a square picture when they're looking down a hall. There's no square picture. This picture has to fall on these lines. So this is the picture in your interior. If you have a countertop, you're not going to draw it like this here. You're going to figure out where the height of it is. Does it hit the floor? If it does, you go down. To get the actual countertop drawn, the line's already there. You have to use what's there. See how it's already there? It's the setup. Now the top of it is flat. Just like the box verticals are flat. There's certain things that are just flat. But to get the rest of your kitchen counter drawn, you can't make it parallel. You can't flare it out. You can't let it converge too fast. In fact, it goes out. This is the vanishing point. It's a reverse. That has to go in, and this has to go in. So you have to take your T-square and figure out how this line goes in. Now you have your countertop. See how that creates depth? And then your picture actually starts to look 3D. That's 1 point. So if you choose 1 point, you start with that. If you choose 2 point, you're going to start with that. And the demo I'm going to do is 2 point. Maybe I'll do both. But that's enough for now. When you start, and I'll get this out of the way too, you're going to tape your paper down exactly to the edge of a square or rectangle table. It doesn't work on a round one. When you tape it down, you can't just randomly put it down. A lot of people put it like that. You can't. You have to literally line it up with this ridge. This is round on the side, but any table that has that flat ridge works. But you have to tape it right there, slide down, and then tape it again right to the edge. So see how that edge is there, and then you tape it. So if you don't have sketch paper, you would do 3 Xeroxes like I'm going to do. If you do sketch paper, do at least 2, because you're going to need it to be really wide. So you want to have like this on the edge of a table, because what we're going to do is make sure we have room for a vanishing point there and a vanishing point there. Okay, that's number 1 video.